schools and that type of thing, face-to-face. But I think people become emboldened when they can bully somebody through the internet without having to face that person face-to-face. And those are some issues that have to be dealt with on a social level. On a legal level, if there is bullying taking place at school, of kids in the same school, where there is things happening both at school and outside of school, then I do think the school has some responsibility to step in and monitor what's happening at the school. I still think the parent has to monitor what happens outside of the school.
Does that sound like a reasonable thing from what you've experienced? And obviously you've been involved with more of the social media sites, both in school and college now.
Yeah, I think that's the best point that came out of that was definitely that it's so impersonal that it's easy almost for kids to take shots at other kids because they don't have to see them face to face. And the same thing happens, you know, with the sexual text messages or anything like that. It's almost easier for them to do because they're just in the comfort of their own home and don't have to face the consequences immediately, and then it just trickles down. Eventually, it comes up. Another thing that I would say is that a lot of these private things come out, and in the hallways, they're almost like bragging rights. A kid gets a picture, and it's not going to stay private. He's either going to mention it or show it to one kid or 20 kids, and that it just explodes so quickly.
And I guess from the parent standpoint, don't do anything that you online that you wouldn't want to do offline, and that would be a safe way of dealing with this. But thinking that since it's summertime and the living can be sleazy, as they say, even with the wonders of technology making this especially easy, many parents don't understand Facebook, LinkedIn, and what sites their children should and shouldn't be involved with. So in terms of security and privacy, what are kids' rights? Do kids have the right to have their own Facebook page, their own username and password that mom and dad don't have access to? And who knows what they're putting up?
You're under 18, you're living at home with your parents. Your parents have every right to tell you what sites you can and cannot have, and if you don't want to listen, they should pull the equipment. Take the computer, take the cell phone. Don't let your child on a website. In fact, I mentioned once before, my mother, who's 81, has a Facebook account, so she can go on and monitor what all of her grandchildren are doing online. And believe me, if something's not right, my brothers, my sister, or I hear about it, and we're immediately alerted by my mother. She's the Facebook police for us.
So the tip to our viewers might be, if your child is going to be on Facebook, make sure as a parent you get to be, what do they call it, one of the friends?
Right.
So that everything that they're sending out, the
Right.
parent gets to monitor.
Right. My mother tells all of her grandchildren, if you don't let me be your friend, I'm cutting you out of the will.
Well, that's another issue that we'll have to review.
And I wouldn't agree with that at the time.
Right.
When I was under 18, I wouldn't agree with that for a second.
But
I definitely agree with it now, and there are precautions, I think, there needs to be an open communication between kids and parents. The kid will say, okay, I'm Mom, I'm thinking about getting a Facebook account. And hopefully the parents will be responsible enough and knowledgeable enough to say, okay, let me walk through you, I'll help you set it up, I'll go through these privacy settings with you. Your daughter actually made my Facebook account. I have no idea what the privacy settings are. I'm pretty unknowledgeable in terms of that, but if the parents are able to guide them through the process and kind of get them a kickstart in the right direction, I think that would help.
So the good point is sit down and actually review this with your kids. Now, it could actually help the parents, because if the child understands what website they want to be on and they work together, the parent will get the tutorial on what they're interested in.
Right.
Whether it's by topic or just social media, also how to use it while the parents work through what the privacy settings are that really do matter right here.
And you should just be aware, if my daughter set up your Facebook page, she left a back door so she can hack in, so be
Great.
careful
Be
what
careful.
you put.
Change my password.
Yeah,
Now-
she'll hack in around that.
And what about if it's not a matter of sexting and the dirty messages or dirty pictures? There are websites that are social media for the preteen, for kids. Maybe it's Disney counterpart, I'm not sure, but they're designed not to accept anything that's like a photo or the person's address. However, they do have sponsored sites that have advertising on it. What kind of restrictions, is there any restriction, how do you get to protect your child from the bombarding of sales messages. Not that we don't love that, we're in the advertising business. Why wouldn't you want to have them? But maybe you don't want your child to be exposed to some of those advertising messages. Are you supposed to be monitoring that as well for a child, even though you know that a young person, 5, 6-year-old site isn't likely to have those sexy pictures on it?
Yeah, the problem is there's ways of companies who send out these things to get people's addresses and so forth from different websites. So they're going to get them. I think it's incumbent upon the parent to be a parent and monitor what's in the child's inbox, what's coming in, what's going out. You were talking a little bit about the sexting and all of that that's mostly through cell phones. And I did a law day presentation with a family court judge, not this year, but the year before. And one of the questions she asked an audience of about 300 or 400 middle school kids is a story where there was a young girl, 12 or 13 years old, who took a picture of herself and sent it to her boyfriend. And she said, and then they broke up. And what do you think the boyfriend did with that picture after they broke up? Little girl raises her hand and says, deleted it. And 350 other young kids laughed because they knew he sent it to all his friends. So I always tell these kids, never push send until you think about what you would think if your mother or father or grandmother or grandfather were getting a copy of what you're about to send out.
That sounds like good advice. It sounds like very good advice. When someone is likely to send a text message, they have control over that message, but the other side of it is, suppose someone takes your phone and then ends up creating a filthy message. Legally, are you, as the cell phone owner, are you liable? Are you responsible legally for that?
Well,
How do you prove? What do you
think
do?
about it in these terms. It's like someone creating a forgery. And if we were talking before, you're in a lawsuit, you've created a whole chain for someone to go back and look at, whether they're emails or texts or any of that stuff. And it's really changed how we as lawyers do discovery. It used to be send us all your written documentation, letters, notes, memorandum, anything you have regarding a lawsuit. Now we say, send us all that, but you probably don't have much of that. Send us your emails, your text message. We want to look at everything. Now, if someone created a forged document or used your phone you're going to have to prove that you're not the one who sent it. That's going to shift the burden to you to say, I didn't send that, I didn't create that.
It does shift the burden to you?
Right.
How is that well, if your phone is gone, then it might easily be defended.
Right.
But if it's back in your house,
Right.
then...
Well, that's the whole point. Isn't there a presumption that you're responsible for what came out of your phone?
And what is one supposed to do if you just find out later, after the fact, that someone lifted your phone and decided to be mean?
You have to be credible and hope that whoever you're trying to prove this to believes you. If your phone's gone and it's really gone, I report it stolen, so that if anything was sent from it after a particular date, you can say, well, I've reported it stolen, here's the police report.
And of course, I don't believe that people use this, but you can weigh in on this, Chris. When you have a cell phone, aren't there also options to have a password before you get to dial out or dial a text message or something?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Do many people use them?
Yes.
I don't. Do they?
They do. Actually, most of my friends,
That's very interesting.
with the Blackberries and all the new iPhones I know come out, I know the iPhones have like a 4-digit password that you have to press before you can do anything on the phone. A lot of people have that provision there. I do as well, just in case, somebody gets a hold of my phone, and my phone, the welcome screen is all of my information in case it gets lost. So they just press one button and my name, my address pop up and everything like that. So it's actually pretty useful.
Right, which is good advice. As the parent, my daughter, my youngest daughter, uses that passcode. I really don't even know how to set it myself, but I think it's great advice to tell people to use that. If you're the parent, I make my daughter tell me what her passcode is. And of course, she changes it every now and then, forgets to tell me, but...
That's something to stay on top of.
Correct.
One of the reasons, apart from the fact that this is a timely and a current issue that had gone on in the New Jersey school system, considering parents are home, hopefully home a little bit more with their kids, and their kids have more free time, you can imagine that the technology makes it so that more people are using these social networks. I'm familiar with LinkedIn from a business standpoint. I'm familiar with Facebook from a business standpoint as well, and I understand that there are privacy codes and settings. But younger people have other websites that I'm not so familiar with. How does someone do a search and find out what kind of sites that their child might be looking at. You might know a little bit about that.
I don't know. I've never had a MySpace or anything